Welcome, everybody. We are back for another week. I am excited this week. This one, someone's been on my list for a while. Our schedules completely missed on one another. With Jason Karp, if I'm pronouncing it right, by the way, sorry, enterprise account executive with Rubrik. You have seen him on LinkedIn. You have seen his information. You're about to get to know him in a way that I think you're going to love. He has a wealth of knowledge on sales, on, I think, in terms of his course in his career. So without that, man, Jacob, how are you?
I'm good, Dave. I appreciate you having me, man. I'm glad we could finally find the time to make this happen.
It
So
was all
thank
my
you.
schedule. I mean, I tried like twice, and it was my schedule. So thank you for being with me. Did I screw up your name in the first like 10 seconds, man? Did I do
Might
that?
have, but I decided to just let it go.
That's fine. I mean that's cool. I need to clip. We'll just clip that out. Now, I don't clip anything out. So cool, man.
So
Well, look, I
actually,
I appreciate.
quickly, I'll tell you that I was on a call earlier today and I was introducing my team and my company. And
Yeah,
I literally said that I worked at the company of the team of place I was prospecting into. So don't worry.
cool, cool.
Everyone laughed. They
It's
were
a good
like,
icebreaker.
what? Yeah.
It's a good icebreaker. Someone posted up recently, man, and I commented on it, and they were like, "You ever get into the habit of saying I love you at the end of a call, right? Like with your wife, and then all of a sudden, you end up business call, and you're like, oh my god, I almost said that. Like, for God's sake, please don't do that. All right, so enough of the
Yeah.
shenanigans. Let's try and dive into you, man, because obviously that's why I'm here. I always love this because I get to learn really about the person and hopefully learn something. I always take away 3 or 4 things, and I hope people listening do as well. So, a little bit on your background, right? Let's just go way back a little bit, okay? So, you played baseball,
I did.
okay, and bullpen catcher is how you defined it and your stuff, right? I told you I was digging, but tell that story, man. Tell that story of you reaching out to that coach, because I think this story is very it's interesting to me about how you reach out and kind of where your career goes. So tell that story, if you don't mind, of how you get that coach's attention, and then how it went from there.
Yeah, no, this is a good one, and I'm glad you found it because it's one of my favorite stories. I've never been afraid, Dave, to cold email someone, to cold text someone, to like cold call someone, even from a young age. So when I was in junior college, I had played baseball at one school. I got injured. My parents moved to Arizona, and there's a junior college there, Yavapai Community College, that has like an awesome baseball program, right? So I wanted to play there. It was going to be close to my parents, but I was definitely not good enough to be actively recruited there. So I recruited myself. So I just kept emailing the coach there and letting him know that I wanted to be on the team. I was coming to school there, whether he was taking me or not. I think probably 6 or 7 times he doesn't reply to me. I call him. I'm sending him like direct mail videos of me. And finally, I just told him, hey, I'm going to be there on this day and would love to have a tryout and meet with you. And sure enough, booked the meeting. So think about it in the sales context and ended up being on the team. So
Very nice, man. Very nice. And you basically said, now part of your piece too is you also said I got a little chip on my shoulder. So does that start back then? I mean, is have you always had a little bit of a, all right, man, I'm going to prove people wrong kind of, piece
yeah.
of the puzzle, or does that come later in life?
No, that's from like day one. And it's funny, like now that I have kids or a daughter, I asked my mom, like, where does this come from? She's like, you came out that way, like trying to prove everybody wrong, like chip on your shoulder. So, even from a young age in sports, I always had a chip on my shoulder for whatever reason that I wanted to be the best. I wasn't always the guy who got recognized or noticed, but I was like, I'm going to outwork everyone. I think even like in my sales career, right? Like, passed over for a lot of roles early on and just decided like I'm always going to persevere. I'm going to get through it. And sometimes, there's a little bit anger is the wrong word, but like that internal, like frustrated drive that took me, kept me going.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think we all have that. It's just how often you summon it up, right? And like, when do you bring it, right? I've seen some of the nicest folks, man. They go to that place, and I'm like, okay, right? They went to a different place. I'm a little bit more like you, right? I've never been that. One that's kind of been, oh yeah, he's going to be the best on the phone. And I tell people, I'm never going to be the best on the phone. Your email writing, probably not, right? It's going to be English. You saw my opening, for God's sake, right? But I'm probably going to outwork you, right? And if I outwork you, I'm probably going to beat you, right? And therefore, over time, that's kind of what's been there. And I sensed that with you, just in reading your stuff, which is really how I got to know you a little bit here. Obviously, we knew each other before, but I kind of sensed that along the way. Now, one thing that's really interesting that I thought, I guess two things. The first is that T-shirt, and I know you have it hanging up. You can't show it, man. Can you tell
Right over
that? You mentioned that one because I think this is like people can look at this, story from a few different ways here. Can you talk about that one, man, in terms of how you got that shirt and kind of what it says?
Yeah, so I would swing the camera over there, but the
It's all right. Don't worry
audience will
about it.
say way too many ridiculous things in this office. So nobody cares work harder, right? And it's funny because I got a little bit of flack from about this
Yep.
from some people because not everyone agreed. I
Yep.
think when it was out of context, I get it. So a gentleman by the name of J.R. Butler, Northeast guy, not unlike yourself, like we just grew up in a way, and probably you too, like
Mm-hmm.
the excuse department was closed. Like, who cares about your excuses, right? Like,
Yeah.
you got to persevere, you got to work harder, you got to figure out a way around it. So that was something when I met him, like we joked about, and eventually he ended up sending me the shirt. But like, I live by it. And what I'll say to the audience is a lot of people DM me and they're like, caring about people is important and like you can't push people that hard. And I'm like, I agree. Like I've worked for some people who pushed me too hard, right? But like that mantra, nobody cares, work harder, that's me versus me. Like going back to the chip on my shoulder, Dave, like that's not someone else telling me like, Karp, I don't care about you, like I'm gonna grind you into the ground. That's me telling me like I'm gonna go as hard as I need to go to achieve what I want to achieve.
Okay. So then let's take the other post you got a little flack on. Hey, I'm on my day off, but you had to take a call for an hour on a deal, right?
Yeah.
And then you came back the next day and like did a video on it. And I watched and I was like, I would do the same thing, right? I'm on your side of like, yeah, you had a deal. It's a scheduled day off. I get it. It was early in the morning. I mean, some things, unfortunately, look, if you want to make this kind of money in sales, I'm sorry, there's a little bit of the trade, and people may not agree with that. That's me personal, but is that along the same theory, or is that going to a different realm in terms of taking that call on a day off, which is really what people lost their mind on? I
They
couldn't
did lose
understand
their
it.
minds. They
I mean, they
did.
did. I was like, this is unfair, but I'm going to give them a chance to tell the story again here.
That's like such a one-off one for me. I actually candidly like don't like to do that stuff on my day off. I am actually kind of a firm believer that like when you take a day off, you should take a day off. Especially like as you get older, you have kids, you have family, like prioritize that time and make it golden. But I mean, hey, it was like the end of the quarter. I think it was a week or two before the end of the quarter. It's the biggest deal I'm working on. And the procurement person, like no offense to our procurement friends, but they
Love them.
somehow they innately know that you're a day off or you're traveling or like you don't have time for the call. So they asked me to take a call at 7 a.m. on my day off. And I said, yeah, because you have to. Like not to get too long-winded about it, but like if it wasn't for a deal, if it wasn't imminent, I probably would have said, hey, I'm back on Monday. But yeah, like if that's the last step I have to make to close that deal, I'm taking that call at 3 a.m. in the morning if I have to.
I'm entirely with you. I saw those two things and I was like, these two go together. And I was like,
Yeah,
this is an easy piece. And I looked at it and I was reading some of the comments. I was like, it's a freaking call. I was like, it's at the end of the quarter.
yeah.
Everybody calm down. But that's just me. I wanted to give you a chance to, talk about it, right? But then let's kind of skip back. You go to baseball. I know you're in the bullpen, you're a catcher, which is pretty badass, right? I had a brother who, I always say on here, he got every bit of the athletic ability. I was like maxed out around age 12, right? So from that standpoint, I was always jealous, always a piece. And then you talked about your story of, how you got into the coach and you weren't scared of cold calling, but then you didn't go right into sales. You went into like a um how am I trying to say here? Help me with this. You went into like not social media, but public
A
affairs or
PR,
something of
yeah.
that narrative. Yeah, PR.
Yeah,
Thank you. Right.
yeah.
So what happened there? Like, what was that transition of, hey, I'm not scared of anybody, but I kind of went into PR. Was that like you thought you're that way, and then you kind of deviated, later in life?
Yeah. So let's think back on this. So I go to junior college. I'm playing, well, playing is the wrong word. I'm on the baseball team. I'm a
I hear
bullpen
you.
player. And I'm realizing quickly, like, dude, I can't hit a 96 mile per hour fastball. Like it's scary enough trying to catch it. So, okay, I'm not going to end up in the big leagues the way I thought I was going to. So I ended up getting injured. I transferred to Arizona State. And one thing that's always been a strong suit for me that I'm very fortunate in is writing. So I actually got a journalism degree from Arizona State. And when I came out, like I had this dream of being a sports writer, but unfortunately that makes about $17,000 a year at the time. And I'm like, I can't afford to do that. So PR, public relations, was my way of leveraging my writing, telling stories and doing it for brands. And then like some of the fearless element was there because like I was essentially like a spokesperson for brands and I had to stand up and say things in front of large crowds and on television. So yeah, I don't know. And then somehow made my way to sales, and here we are.
Well, yeah, you said someone you made your way to sales, but you also said, hey, that was a turning point, right? A huge turning point in your life in terms of taking care of your family.
Yeah.
Some personal like medical stuff. Like, you know, from that point of going into sales, did you ever think you'd be in sales? Like what? I mean, you're in PR. So what's that moment where you go, hey, wait a second, I'm shifting out of this and going into this thing over here, right? Like what happened there?
Yeah. So a lot of PR is telling stories, right? Like telling stories about a brand, a product, a company. So you're already doing some of the sales stuff. You just don't really realize. I didn't realize at the time that I was selling the
Mhm.
idea or the brand or whatever. So a lot of it, if I'm just honest, like I was always interested in sales. My dad was actually a software sales guy in like the 80s and 90s. God knows what that software was. I don't even know at this.
What's that
Um,
like?
I
Like
don't.
DOS or like Basic or something, right?
Yeah, I don't even need to know, and I'm not going to ask him at this point. But yeah, so I'm telling the story of these brands and companies, right? And then part of it, like quite frankly, was just money stuff. And I talk about it in the post, and he referenced it. So
Yeah.
needed teeth implants. Like I got in a traumatic accident and had problematic teeth situation. And I finally went to figure out like how much is that going to cost. And when I saw the bill, I about fell out of my chair. And in the PR world, I wasn't going to make the money necessary to pay for that until I was like a VP or a partner somewhere, like truly. So I had friends in sales, friends who were doing well, and a lot of it was just upward mobility on the income side. Plus, like I think you and I are similar here, like chip on your shoulder, you always want a challenge, right? And people tell you you can't do it or you don't know what you're gonna do or how you're gonna figure out. And like you tell me that, I'm gonna be like, I'm figuring it out. Let's go.
Yeah.
Throw me over the fence and let's figure out sales.
So I love talking about your career, and I've talked to some people. I'm going to deviate in stuff, but I don't have to with yours because yours has so many critical moments in it that are to me captivating that I want to know more about. So you go into sales and then you say, hey, look, I think it was 2018, 2017, 2019, somewhere in there, it's rocky. And this is public or it's, the post. I'm gonna, go there and you know where I'm going. You got let go because of performance right after a year. And yet if I looked at you now, right, in terms of how you describe your sales, in terms of how you do your business, in terms of who you're working for and your success stories, I would think you're crazy, right? Like, so what did something click like it does for a lot of us in that, or is that just you know, a, we all go through slumps and it's like no big deal and you should bounce back? Like, what was that for you?
Humility. Honestly, I just a kick in the proverbial junk and like taking my ego down a notch. So The first 5 years that I was in sales, I was selling cable and broadband hardware. I rose up the ranks. I did very well. I became a VP around, I don't know how old, well, I was like 28 or 29. I didn't know what I was doing, candidly, but I became a VP. So I did that. And then again, I'm in hardware and I'm trying to get into software, and I keep getting told like you don't have software experience, so you can't work in software, which is like the craziest like chase your tail scenario of my sales life. So I get into software sales finally, and I failed miserably that first year. And honestly, Dave, like the reasons I did is that I thought I knew more than I did. I thought I could overcome this learning curve simply by brute force, which wasn't the case. And I thought that I knew the way to get in front of prospects and customers and speak the speak in software, and I didn't. And I didn't know how to prospect. I didn't know how to research accounts. I didn't know how to do all the stuff I know how to do now. My attainment was very low, and I got fired or laid off, we should say. And honestly, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it was like a true bottom. I had to look myself in the eye, look in the mirror and say like, you're not that good. And whatever you do next, like you've got to be coachable and you've got to be willing to learn.
Okay. And then is that when you go into the AE role basically and say, okay, I'm at this point in my career, I'm not going to go into a VP role. I'm not going to go into a director role. I'm going to go into where I need to go to learn and to be, maybe be happy as well, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's, I think for a lot of us, what we everybody goes, and I was perfect example of this. I'm like, oh, I want to be X title and X title and X title. And I think along the way, I go, you know what I'm happy at? I'm happy here, and that's, I mean, was that into your mind at that point, or was it, hey, I still want to go back to that title, in all honesty?
Yeah, I think I'd abandoned the title piece at that point, and what I was really focused on for the next role after getting laid off was where was a place that I could learn and grow and learn processes, frameworks, methodologies, whatever, so that I'm never going to get laid off again based on my performance. And also so that I always have a job. And so that place for me became App Dynamics. And the way it was actually sort of identified was I had some mentors at the time who were like, there's a series of companies that are teaching people how to do account research, how to do prospecting, how to like stack rank your territory, how to run medic, like, and again, like none of this is a pitch for these methodologies. It's just more the idea of like having a process, using some data and some frameworks to know that like if I do these inputs, like I'm not guaranteed, but like the outputs are probably there's a higher
Yeah.
probability that I hit these, right?
Yep. Yeah. No, it's like in baseball, knowing what pitch is coming, right? Like, I mean, I have a not bad, not bad
Yeah.
segue
Yeah,
there, right?
there we go.
Um, okay, so then you mentioned it a few times, and again, our careers are pretty similar. I broke into software at 48, right? So how did you make that? You got into software and you wanted to do it. I mean, if someone's listening, and a lot of people are like, all right, great. How do I do this now? And a lot of people have talked about this, have you, Darren McKee, Eric McKee are in the past, what, year and a half, 2 years, have been phenomenal at this. What advice would you give somebody now if they're where you were trying to come into the software space?
Yeah, I think it's something that's top of mind for a lot of people, and those guys have done a great job. The way that I think about it is like, how much can I learn externally? Like, how much can I learn not in the role, right? So I talk with people who are trying to break in about make a list of companies, right? So it's not just spray and pray of like, I would work for any
Mhm.
software company in the world. Here's 20 software companies I want to work for, tech companies, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Understand their business. So do the research to understand their business. How do they make money? Like, what does their ideal customer profile look like? Who are they going after? What's their go-to-market motion, right?
Mhm.
So that stuff initially for me. And then like, what are the metrics they rely on, whether that's the company specific or just like when you work in software, you will hear every acronym in the world. Learn those, because I tell people like when you go into an interview just for an SDR role or AE role, be transparent. Say, hey, I've never actually done this, but I know about ARR. I know about ACV. Like, I know what your conversion rate needs to be from like a first meeting to like a second meeting. Because the biggest thing for a sales leader, the biggest risk is that someone's going to come in and their new employee, you're like, I got to teach them everything. They don't know process. They don't understand how our business runs. They don't understand how we make money. They don't understand how revenue works. So it's like, what can I take off that person's plate just by learning externally before I come in the door and then showing them that I understand it, right?
Yeah, no, and I was reading that post and you had a few acronyms. I'm like, well, heck, I don't know that one. I was like, I need to research. I was like, well, damn, I need to. I was like, I started, I was like, hey, I need to write that one down somewhere. So, and this is where I kind of go off, as I look over at my notes here and just on all the things I picked up on. Do you talk to people here on LinkedIn who like are looking for help or like to just a one-off conversation for 15, 20 minutes, anything of that nature that you do?
Yeah, I definitely do. So a couple things there. I try to respond to every message on LinkedIn, which is insanity, but like I think it's very important because I was once that person reaching out to people like looking for any bit of help, right? So, as you probably know, it's impossible to scale and talk to anyone and everyone for 15 minutes. I do focus on the people who are repetitive or consistent, right? It's the same as like in our sales process. Like if I'm reaching out to a prospect twice and then I give up, I probably am not going to get to talk to them. If I reach out to them X amount of times past that, like I'm on their radar and at least they know who I am. So the people who are consistent, and I hate that it has to be that way, but I
Yeah.
do. I take chats with folks. I'm doing some more like kind of like coaching-esque stuff around that or might be in the future, but I definitely want to help. Like I was there, man. I get it.
Yeah, and you have, you've built your following. I didn't realize, you got 20,000 people there. And I know numbers aren't everything and there's more to it, but I see your engagement, right? And it's phenomenal. And for people that think that LinkedIn's got to be and you and I talked about right before we, actually started the real recording here when I screwed up the opening was, dude, you got some really funny damn stuff out there, right? Like you went to like Eminem, right? You went to like, right? You went to, I think the one was like the NCAA basketball of like, hey man, just in case you're curious, just reach out today and say, hey, your school's playing my school, right?
Yeah.
And I think if anybody follows you, and they damn well should, if they aren't, you're gonna take away that it doesn't have to be all serious. It can actually be like you're a real person, and we can have some fun with this, game called sales too, right? Is that kind of what goes through your mind sometimes when you're doing a post or you're thinking about content, you know?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, if you can't find humor in life, but also in sales, like you are going to go crazy. I'm just gonna tell you, like it's stressful, like it's serious most of the time, but like it's funny too, right? Like there's so many funny things in the sales world, and I think humor is just critical. And so yeah, for folks that follow me after this, thank you. But also like what you'll find is like I try to work in like pillars. So like we're going to talk about sales, we're going to talk about go to market stuff. I'm in the cybersecurity space, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about like family personal stuff. And then honestly, I'm going to make fun of some stuff. Like I'm going to find fun in it, but I'm also going to make fun of some of the stuff that happens in sales because it's a little absurd.
Oh yeah, no, it's 100%. And your stuff, like I look at it and I go, damn, that's good, right? I'm like, damn, I'm like, that's good. I'm like, how do I, like take that and give him credit? I don't know. I got to figure it out. The NCAA one just got me. I was like, damn, he's right. So, in going through your stuff, you're an outdoors guy, right?
Yeah.
Like I can never stand in the river, by the way. Like I saw it, and I was like, not a chance in hell, right? But you love the fly fishing, and do you snowboard? And did I get that right?
Oh yeah. Yep. Still
Dude, I'd
doing
kill myself, right? So you fly fish, you have snowboard, you're out, and you're always posting and say, look, get outside, right?
it.
And from work from home, I swear I look at your some days and I'm like, I'm going for a walk. I have to get out and come back and I'm better. There's a balance. And I always talk about this and I always want to hear people's perspective on this because you're successful in sales, you have a family, right? A young family, which is harder. You're a big proponent of just getting away and leaving your phone and being in the river and holding this huge ass fish, right? like, how do you do that? Like, how do you set time to where you're in balance, if you will, or at least close?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, first, like my wife will never see this because she's not on LinkedIn and won't pay attention anyway. But like, I have an extremely supportive wife, so I'm super fortunate there because she gives me the time to do it, but she knows that I need it, and it comes from a place, Dave, where I didn't do it before, and I've burned out. I've burned out. I've had panic attacks. I've had stress, whatever. I've done it to myself, but also like as you know, as a father, like when you don't give yourself that time, like you can't give your whole self to your wife, your family, your kids, your friends, and like they realize it, right? And so like I realized quickly, like I need time to myself away from like there's all these screens right here, man. Like I got a monitor right here, two laptops, a phone. Like I need time away from that to just recharge so that when I come back, like I'm me again and not just like some robot who's been staring at screens for a whole week, like we somehow are on Fridays.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm actually, this is probably my post for tomorrow. I know this will be a little bit delayed, but I actually, slacked my CRO today. I'm like, dude, I need a half day tomorrow. Like, there's no way that someone can show up at my 2 p.m., like 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. meetings, how we schedule, and I be anything. Like, it's unfair for that person to book the meeting with me for tomorrow. I was like, I need it, right? And I don't usually get that way. I'm usually I'll just bite the lip and just go through, right? That's how I've always been. And I think I've grown into, hey, look, I just need a little bit, right? And that's
Oh,
it.
that's huge.
You know,
Huge
so
that you can recognize it, and huge that you have a supportive CRO who's like, yeah, man, go do it.
oh, he said absolutely, and I put like three emojis with it, or I was like, all right, man, just like the whatever, right? The
Yeah.
2022, usually you like fist bump in person. Now we're like, I'll throw something there, man. So for you, I mean, what's next, man? Like, I mean, you said you're 38 and you're content. I laughed at that part because I was like, dude, you're still young, right? You have your entire career, but what do you want to do?
Oh man, that's the big question, right? I mean, I think that for me, I see a day when I'm helping others. Like I don't know if that means I'm in leadership or if that means like I'm doing my own kind of like coaching and consulting thing because I think that stuff fills my cup more than just being an AE who's in your own little world of like trying to get deals done. So I definitely think that's part of it. I'm not going to stop writing. Like I'll definitely be writing. I'll definitely be posting on LinkedIn. Whether it's causing controversy or not with people, we'll see, but that's not going to stop. So
when
I,
you
but
say when you say writing, are you writing outside of LinkedIn, or is that what you consider writing for you?
that's what I consider writing right now. I have aspirations to write bigger things. I think it's an interesting point because for a while I felt like writing was missing in my life and it's always been a core component. And honestly, people can think it's cheesy, but LinkedIn is the place I write. Like it's a place to like let stuff out for 15
Yes.
minutes and post it and be like, whatever
Yes.
happens, happens.
Yes. It is. I have said this and I'll keep saying it. To me, it's therapeutic. You
Yep.
literally know where, and sometimes I'll schedule and sometimes I sit down and go, what is on my mind right now? And
Yeah.
literally just start typing. And then and half my posts have like grammatical errors in it, right? Just because I'm like, I'm so anxious to hit post, I don't even look. But sometimes it's literally what I'm thinking. And either I need to get it off my chest or I just want to put it out to the world and see what you're thinking, right?
Yeah.
And see what other people, and some of the stuff that I don't know if this is with you, some of the stuff that I have done, I'm like, oh, this is just a random thought, has the most engagement over something that I thought was like really serious and really good, right?
Yeah.
It's just like this weird little piece that, again, I think it goes back to what people just want. They just want kind of human, and they want, somebody who's just like them, and you go, yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Don't overthink it, just kind of go.
Yeah, I think the authenticity and the transparency goes a long way, and that's what resonates with people because I've had the same experience. It's like there was a time early when I was writing on LinkedIn that I thought more about it and I curated my content and like I edited the grammatical and typos and kind of maybe took some of the human element away because I was like, I don't know if I want to say that. And now, like, I don't throw caution to the wind, but I'm like you. I'm like, I fire it off, and it's like the things that came straight out of my brain are the ones that go crazy, and the things I thought about are normal. And people are like, that's okay.
Right. No, no, seriously. All right. A few questions at the end. I always like that little bit of like fun at the end here, man, in terms of, in terms of this piece. Let's go to snowboarding for a second, man.
Okay.
Right? Like most badass trick you can currently do, not in past, but current physical form, what you can do right now.
The coolest thing I can do is like do a jump and not die. Basically, there's no real trick to it anymore. It's just like, oh, I got like half a foot of air. I feel great about
Dude, you're
myself.
the best. Your daughter's gonna grow up and go, my dad's a badass. And he's like this snowboarding, and like the rest of us are like
Yeah.
tripping, getting out of the car. So, all
Well,
right.
here's what's funny though. Like, I had a GoPro at one point. I had it on my helmet. I'm
Every
like,
snowboarder does, by the way. You have
I'm
to
like,
have a GoPro at
I
some point in
can't
time in
wait.
your life.
I
Sure.
can't wait to see this footage. And then you watch it and you're like, dude, this is so lame. I'm going like 4 miles an hour. I'm not doing
You're doing
anything.
the S. You're doing a little like like this is awesome. Look at
I
this.
asked my wife to watch it. She's like, that is not worth watching. Like,
Like
don't even show anyone
Jacob,
that.
don't show anybody this. Like
No,
nobody.
no. Yeah,
Delete the hell out of that,
yeah.
man.
Yep.
All right. So in baseball, you remember your first bomb you hit in college?
Yes, I do. Yep. It was an inside fastball on a 1-2 count that I yanked down the line.
1-2. Look at you getting
Yeah.
around on a fastball.
Well, I don't know how I did it because I think I was probably sitting curveball or off speed and just like reacted somehow. So, but
Dude,
yeah,
that must be the best. That is to me, there's certain moments, right? Like how I get chills, I'm like thinking about this, going, I just want to take a trip around the bases once like that, right? Like I want to high five the third base coach when I come home one time like that,
it's a
right?
good feeling,
And
man. I miss it.
I think that's why I'm in sales is I get more jacked on those small deals that I work so damn hard for than I do on like the bigger ones that I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yeah, this is typical process. Here we go, whatever, right? But 100%. All right, last one, man. So if you sum up 2023 in one word, how do you what word you using for that?
It's an interesting one. The word I'm going to use is just being content. I'm more content than ever, and I think that's a
It's
good
awesome.
thing because I used to be like trying to like punch my way through walls every day, and now I'm okay to sit in the life that I've created and the life I have, and I feel good about it. So,
There it is. I love that. That is a great 20-second clip right there. Man, I'll tell you what, if you take nothing away from this listening, take that away. Take that away. I am content right now where I'm at. It doesn't mean you're like, you're not striving, you're not learning, you're not improving, but I'm content where I'm at right now. That is so good. Thank you for that. Well, look, everybody, I told you you would enjoy this. Jacob, I enjoyed the hell out of this. I almost said a really bad word. Um,
I
Thank you,
would
man. Like I
appreciate
want to, like I said, coming in, half the stuff I didn't get to just because you kind of took it to spots that I really enjoyed. Man, thanks for being on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it as well, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could finally make this happen. So,
Awesome.
appreciate you.
Awesome. All right, everybody. That's it. That's a wrap. Next week, I got two other people lined up, and we'll keep going together. Take care, everybody.